Right, you're welcome back. This is Newsfile. It's your most authoritative news analysis show. And here on Newsfile, we put Ghana first. Dr. Ayas has left us. We have been joined by Wabing Asamoah. He's the Honorable MP for Adenta and Ranking Member, Subsidiary Legislation Committee of Parliament. YB, good morning and welcome.
Thank you very much.
Thanks for making time. Now, as you know, former President John Mahama has said a few things about the galamsey fight, and is getting a lot of tongues wagging. The NPP has spoken at a press conference. The minister now, that is Peter Amewu, has also spoken and described the President, John Mahama, in ways that angers his supporters. The President's office has also been responding. Let's listen briefly to former President Mahama. We'll listen to the NPP reacting to his comments, and then Peter Amewu, as well as Joyce Bawa Muktari, and then we'll come to the studio to do the discussion.
Almost sa ejumano si abon ho ban a ebe say asase no enso ye di nyansa en ye di ye sa ade a ye di soldier for e de echeche ye mabu na omo ye illegal small scale mining no ya ye bi da sa o kai ya ye bi da e wo Ghana ha enso anya ejuma na ama ejuma no etimi akoso ama
It is true that if we do not regulate small-scale mining, it can harm the environment. But in regulating it, you have to apply common sense. The use of the military is not new. When in power, we adopted it, but it did not work. So we decided to bring a new mining law to regulate and keep people in the mining business. Before the elections, I told you there are new regulations in place, but since we could not win, they were not implemented. The law is at the Minerals Commission, so the government should not hesitate to go back and implement it so that small-scale mining will be activated.
It is not the way to go. In Tempara, I was buying a share. Sa regulations see no more days she papa ba send a beya omo person mu no they'll do it within the law. Sa ne was omo no before your election no I told you that we're coming with a new mining regulation na nyame anye adumenti yetimi ama we've not been able to implement it.
As a former leader, and I believe that he's still living on the largesse of the nation, we expect that he will be law-abiding and encourage all and sundry to engage in legal activities, so that an attempt by Nana Addo Akufo-Addo, the president of this country, to clamp down on an activity that is virtually destroying the fabric of our nation, if he is encouraging people engaging in illegal mining with the promise that if he is voted for in unlikely future years to come, he's going to allow them. I think that is not proper for the running of our country, and we expect that, as honorable as is expected, he will either withdraw honorably and give unqualified apology to the boldness and the courage with which Nana Addo Akufo-Addo is addressing this menace. I hope that they themselves, if they had the courage, would have done so, only that they couldn't master the courage. So he should commend us for the good job we are doing for this country.
He ruled this country for this number of years at the peak of galamsey. He has not been able to provide a single paper on sanitizing the small-scale mining. Today, you mount a platform and tell Ghanaians, I am so much disappointed.
You said your approach is counterproductive, it will not yield results.
Which is the best approach? An elaborate approach with a project document. He should produce as a minister, he should produce as a president. He should produce as a president of this country when he was, whether he has produced a single page document on small-scale mining in this country. He has failed Ghanaians, And that was why Ghanaians rejected him as a president. He cannot use galamsey at this time, thinking that he'll come back to power. I respect that man, but for today, I'm much disappointed in the words he said when he was in Kumasi. What has Mahama been able to do?
Well,
I have not seen anything on small
scale. Let me
scale.
take you back to his era. In his era, he had a regional task force to deal with this illegal miners, led by honorable Unisov.
They went destroying they were destroying all kind of equipment. Untumi then was having a lot of equipment. You know, you heard of it? But Mahama and his people destroy it. Approach. And so I am so much disappointed in him. Of course, he cannot address the problem. I'm telling the small scale miners that this gentleman, you know, is a con man. He's deceiving them. If they dare go in for him just because of galamsey, this country will be it will come down.
He didn't heap any invectives on anybody. He didn't spew any insults on anybody. He spoke within the context and format that galamsey was now all over the country. Indeed, you recall that at the time when then candidate Akufo-Addo went to the eastern region, I recall vividly, and I believe that I've seen the tape in circulation even, that people had been going around purportedly saying that he was going to come to end galamsey because he was going to find better ways to engage them than to enforce a ban. 1 year after that so-called ban, now that he's president, what difference has it made? I think that this is the context in which we should look at former President Mahama's comments. And I do think that if anybody needs to make an apology, it is the main appointees, ministers of state, especially the comments by the Minister for Land and Natural Resources. I deem them most unfortunate. I also detect a certain phobia and paranoia for all comments and statements made by former President Mahama. Indeed, presently we have a government that in opposition criticized everything, even things that were good and positive, received great criticism. And now they cannot even take constructive criticism. The sort of noises that are being made are a clear indication that former President Mahama has touched on a sore point.
So if there should be an apology,
the measures are not working.
Okay, so
if do need to find a better way, more sustainable approaches, and above all, a better solution than harming Ghanaians who are only doing this because they want to earn a living.
Okay.
All right. So you've heard former President John Mahama, you've heard John Boedu of the NPP, and John Peter Amewu, as well as Joyce Bawa-Muktari, who speaks for the former president. Now, yeah, you share in the NPP's press statements and what the minister had to say about being disappointed in the former president.
Thank you, Samson. Let me just say a quick hello to the people of Adenta as I sit here representing them. And yes, I believe that I share those sentiments. You see, I think that this is the most predatory statement coming from the NDC since the one-time premium. The one-time premium. A position that you know will not work, and yet politically it's self-serving, it's selfish, it's greedy, and it's literally nation-wrecking. To promise to bring back galamsey when you haven't put in place a framework to resolve how legality can be separated from illegality.
He promised to bring back galamsey.
Is that what you're saying?
When you say that
he promised to bring back galamsey,
I said to promise. I didn't say he promised.
Okay.
I said to promise. Inferentially, it's implied. Inferentially. You see, we have a situation. We have a situation in this country now. We have a situation in this country now where there's serious tension between democracy and development. The old analysis about whether we should have development before democracy and otherwise. Look, the nations which have moved ahead, most of them didn't have universal adult suffrage when they were really developing. And even in Western cases, Singapore and otherwise, they've had a situation where it's not full democracy. We have to develop ourselves. We have to do everything in the full glare of everybody else. It means that, yes.
His point is that using the military, the security, in the manner that is being used is not effective.
I'm coming there.
He says he has tried it and it didn't work.
Yes, but let him unbundle the conundrum.
That is not the same as promising to allow galamsey if he was giving the opportunity to be president again, and that is not encouraging galamsey as
something for the purposes of this debate.
Said.
If you insist, I'll move beyond that.
Okay.
You remove the word promise.
Okay.
But I still stand by my inference of that opportunity, that political opportunity to create disaffection on the back of a process aimed at resolving the difficulty of establishing legality in that sector. There are genuine difficulties there, and it is for not just the government at this time, but the coalition who also started, civil society, to stand up and say, yes, including the artisanal miners whose livelihoods are at stake. It's a huge situation. I am here and I hear that the artisanal miners are talking about losing $551 million in 9 months. Christ me! Is that the kind of money that is being made?
You didn't know?
No! I bet the government doesn't know. I bet the Minerals Commission doesn't know. I bet the tax authorities do not know. I bet that if we do a serious cost-benefit analysis... Well, if we were to do a serious cost-benefit analysis, that industry ought to be paying for itself and giving us a net surplus. Just like cocoa built the infrastructure of this country, why can't gold mining build this infrastructure and still sustain us? The danger we face is that it's not only degrading our lands, our water, our forests, it is also eating into the old industries. Cocoa trees are being cut down as we speak. Cash crops are under threat. Food crops are under threat. So we are going to be a net importer of water and food, and our source of income to build our infrastructure and borrow to invest in that infrastructure, being the cocoa funds, are also under threat. It's a huge issue. So it is about a framework that deals with enforcement and alternatives.
Okay.
And I'll explain the two, enforcement and alternatives.
Did John Mahama say anything that derails the efforts ongoing?
I think it does, to the extent that there's serious agitation now about when the ban will be lifted. The ban was put in place for 6 months.
Yes.
It's been extended for 3 months.
And
as we speak now, it's being extended virtually indefinitely.
Yes. We're told that by close of this year,
yes,
it should be out.
Exactly. So the question is that within that period, you have two issues. You have the enforcement issue and you have the alternatives issue. That is the concrete measures the government is putting in place. Enforcement covers 2 areas. One is the regulations that will govern those who will be allowed to mine, because we are not going to quit mining. We are not going to quit mining. 2 is how you make sure that those who don't follow the regulations are punished. At this stage, I want to ask the former president, and I read some material. Unfortunately, I was looking for the law, Act 900, which institutionalized militarization of the fight. This was passed by his government.
Militarize what?
Yes, because he says that...
What? We didn't militarize anything.
What did you do?
No.
It should be enforced.
No, we didn't militarize anything.
You criminalized it. It should be enforced.
I spearheaded the amendment of the
law. When it gets to your turn, you can speak about it. You can speak about it.
No.
You can speak and explain about it. Let me speak. Let me speak. So, on the enforcement level, the government is confronted with those 2 things. How do you isolate the legal people, get them to work within limits? And 2, how do you enforce criminalized activity? Secondly is the alternatives. And government has put in place the multi-sector approach where you are providing alternate livelihoods as well as reclaiming land and giving issues. These may be subject to critique, but they are not negotiable.
So the focus of the former president's comment is, and I'll take part of that comment, he says, it is true that if we don't do something about it, it will destroy the environment. But we need to apply wisdom because we have chased young people involved in illegal small-scale mining with soldiers in the past in this country, but it didn't work. So do you hear him say we should be finding alternatives for them and the approach should not be an approach that has not worked?
It is the wisdom part of it that drives me to infer, because there's historicity. Between 2013 and 2016, this boomed. The Chinese entered, all that. What happened in that era? What did the former president and his government put in place to really manage that industry? How did they let legality and illegality get so close together and get so mixed up? Because even for some of the legal miners, that means those who have licenses. Now, legality has been reduced to those who have licenses. Even for those people, many of them resorted to, in quotes, certain ways, methodologies which would consider illegal. Because they're on the ground there, they are using machines that damage river bodies. Right. They are they are cutting down whole swathes of forest and digging and leaving big holes and things behind. The methodology does not respond to the legality of the license that they have. So when you reduce legality to having a license, you have problems. You must have legality beyond the license. You must look at access to the land. You must look at methodology. You must look at revenue management. You must look at land reclamation. You must look at everything. So even for those who are authorized to mine, there is no regime differentiating them from those who are not authorized to mine, who are, in quotes, the galamsey people. No, the methods are the same. So what did the former president put in place to distinguish these things beyond the failed militarization that he spoke about? I think you
are frequently reminded of what was your promise, you know, to what you wanted to do
regulate
in this era.
Yes.
And I remember that even when Peter Amewu was before Parliament's committee that was vetting him,
yes,
what he was interested in was still what the NPP's manifesto is dealing with, as to how to regularize those that were doing it wrongly. That was the focus of the government.
Correct.
And then the media began its own war. And then the government bought into it. And now we have a full-scale anti-galamsey fight.
Right.
So the point is, if he has said whatever he said, how different is it from what you were intended in doing anyway?
Because he should have addressed the collective challenge constructively. Now the collective challenge is beyond the ban. Have we managed to develop a workable framework? And that's the challenge that the Honorable Minister has now. Beyond the ban, you are going to allow mining to take place. Is there a framework, a regulatory framework that's buoyant enough, resilient enough to handle the difficulties of regulation? 2, are we making efforts in the area of sustainability, environment, as well as alternative employment, so that people can be weaned off the industry rather than making it attractive for more people to come in and create more difficulties for us? Beyond the ban, this is a very, very important public conversation. That conversation shouldn't be premised on a political platform. That conversation should be premised on an inherent assumption and belief that certain people are being disadvantaged and therefore politically they are being victimized. Because they are not being victimized. Artisanal miners deserve attention, but the nation also deserves respite from the ravages of artisanal mining.
Those who have licenses to mine are complaining.
Yes.
It's taking government too long,
yes,
you know, to get out of the situation and allow them to get back to their work.
That's right.
We know there's a committee that's supposed to do its work and present a report to the president, yes, and subsequently on the basis of that report, yes, we will have the ban lifted.
Right.
But it's taking too long, and they say you're sitting on their right. They have got licenses to mine.
Time is relative, and at this stage, I would want to appeal to the Ghana National Association of Small-Scale Miners to get very involved in the process. I have read that one of the deputy ministers has stated, Honorable Barbara Tinjesi, the MP for Huni Valley Prestia, which is a mining area, and she happens to be one of the ministers dealing with this matter, has said that the committee is working assiduously and expect to see the ban lifted by close of the year latest. In the interim, there's plenty of work to do. Even carrying out an assessment not only of the small-scale legal mining sector, but also of the mining industry as a whole. Indeed, that cost-benefit analysis that we haven't yet consciously and forcefully done. We have the Akilapa report. Is mining in its current format and the way it's done giving us a net return? I saw some statistics in a newspaper talking about the returns of the entire mining sector over a year. And all the figures were there. Tax revenues to government were all stated. Then at some point, it states that total employed in the industry is over 11,000. And then expatriates in the industry, 190 out of the over 11,000, 1.6%. Then it doesn't talk about relative wage levels. Because I know that the sector complains that those 1.6% are taking a lion's share of the revenues. You understand? How are our revenue authorities doing tracking what is being extracted from the ground? There's work to do. So I think that at this stage, rather than trying to create the impression that the effort has failed, we need to constructively criticize and demonstrate that we have a national task ahead of us. We have a duty to resolve this problem in a democratic framework whilst protecting rights. We also must ensure human security.
Okay.
We must ensure human security.
Yes, instead of saying it, the questioning is that, I mean, this is an ex-president that most of the reports you read suggest that it is during his tenure or the NDC's era that this problem became pronounced. That was the era when we began to hear about how our water bodies are getting so deeply, polluted, and the suggestion that we were likely to be importing water in a matter of 10 years if nothing was done. So if he has advice to give on this project, is that the avenue to give that advice? Does he not have access to the president or the minister?
Samson, I get terribly worried about the incipient and creeping levels of intolerance in this country. There is a new definition of a reality, and the reality of the MPP. And if you don't speak to that reality, then you clearly are anti-establishment. Now, just 2 days ago, we hosted the World Press Freedom Day in Ghana.
Right.
And Akufo-Addo said that the citizens of this country have an attachment to the right to freedom of expression, democratic accountability, and respect for human rights. Now, what did the ex-president say that warranted, excited that level of intolerance and abuse on his person?
You see, he encouraged galamsey.
First of all, NDC's approach to the fight against illegal mining was not ad hoc, was not an afterthought. It found expression in the MDC's manifesto of 2012. Meaning NDC had already identified galamsey, illegal mining, as a problem in this country. And look at what it said on page 40. Aggressive continuation of the exercise started by government. It means that even before 2012, there was already an exercise to flash out foreigners who have invaded small-scale mining sector. The small-scale mining sector, since the sector is reserved for Ghanaians and will continue to be reserved for Ghanaians. Look at what it said on that page again. The vigorous implementation of a program to transform galamsey operations into legitimate small-scale mining activity on clearly demarcated areas. So it was not an afterthought. We as a party were not attacking galamsey and dealing with illegal small-scale mining on the basis of what MPP is doing. We thought about it. And did what? The president thought about it. Look, this is a cabinet memo, a cabinet minutes, copy of a cabinet minutes that I have. When Chichewure happened, I visited Chichewure. And this minutes is on the 18th day of April 2013, way before the committee was established. And look at what the cabinet said.
Are you allowed to quote cabinet?
The team made up the following. Yes. The team made the following observations. Activities of illegal mining operations was causing serious destruction to the environment around the area. The Pra and Ofin rivers were being destroyed by illegal mining operations. Through the Chinese though the Chinese were noted as main culprits, other nationals from West Africa sub-region were also involved in illegal mining. There was the need, and that underline that, there was the need to have a holistic, consultative, and a broad stakeholders approach to deal with the problem of illegal mining. So the committee was constituted on the 4th of May. This is a memo from the National Security Secretariat to me as chairman of the committee. And that is why I say that probably Amewu has not read the handing over notes. And these are my handing over notes at the ministry to my successor. And you will find mentioned in the handing over notes the problem of galamsey and where we have reached.
But you keep describing the problem.
Why is the program? Wait.
So you set up the committee.
Please.
Operation Halt. What did it
now
do?
on the setting up of the commission, the task force, we mobilized 248 military personnel, 240 police personnel, 32 immigration service personnel, 8 Minerals Commission personnel, and I hear Amewu say that we were burning equipment. Look at their mission. Coordinate activities of the task force. Carry out liaison with the RCCs in Ashanti, Eastern, Central, Western regions by 31st day of April before commencement of operations. Establish holding areas for all suspects and equipment items seized during the operations at the RCC in 4 regions. And that's the phase 1. Take inventory of all suspects and items, equipment seized during the operations, and coordinate security and disposal of all cases. Maintain a list of all persons, Ghanaians and non-Ghanaians, arrested during the operations and take actions on them. Send a daily state rep report to the National Secretariat and all actions taken on the suspects. This was a carefully thought out program. The president speaking to the nation in the first State of the Nation address delivered on Tuesday, February 21st, 2013. This is what he said. As I recently announced, government will rigidly enforce the laws of the land by addressing illegal invasion of foreigners in our small-scale mining sector. The problem has been fully investigated, underlined, and we have concluded that there is an acceptable collusion between some Ghanaians and these foreigners to circumvent our laws. No. So we did not go for wholesale ban. We realized that illegal small-scale mining was legalized under the Rawlins's regime, under the PNDC, as an avenue to create employment. We realized that some people had applied and obtained licenses to do small-scale mining. These people who had obtained licenses were under the radar of the Minerals Commission, and so their exploitation activities were being monitored by the Minerals Commission. The difficulty that we had, and those who were polluting our water bodies, were those who were engaged in illegal activities. So before we went on the clampdown, Samson, we got the Minerals Commission.
But you see, you're reading all of these ideal,
they're not ideal
things that you wanted to do.
We were doing.
The question is,
Samson, we didn't want to do it. On the 3rd day of July, 2013, 3,877 Chinese were deported out of this country. We're not intending to do, we're doing. Have you heard that number or any a similar number.
Almost 4,000 Chinese.
Only Chinese were deported from this country. Now, on the 7th day of June, 181 other Chinese were arrested and processed for deportation, reported by Al Jazeera Newswork. There are many examples that I can give you. Now, the program of work was actually done by the Interministerial Task Force and the Minerals Commission.
The task force.
And the Minerals Commission. Interministerial Task Force.
The people on the ground.
No, there was an interministerial task force.
Yes.
The people on the ground were just the National Security Coordination, National Security Task Force.
It was a clampdown approach.
So there was a task force on the ground.
On the ground.
Approach.
And we had said.
Yeah, so I mean, frankly speaking,
yes,
clamp down approach.
Yes.
Yes, clamp down.
Militarize approach.
Yes. Oh, the president has not said, oh, you see, that is how you are getting it wrong, totally wrong.
All right.
The president, and just like Nana Addo Akufo-Addo, swore on the Bible to uphold the laws of this country. One way to do it is to enforce the laws. By the Act 703 as amended, foreigners were not and are not to take part in small-scale mining. What other way are you going to enforce the laws of the country than to use the enforcement agencies to get those people out? What other? Are you going to beg them?
Exactly.
Are you begging them? But we have said consistently that the use of law and order alone would not and cannot sustain the fight against galamsey. Who said it? Professor Korte, Dean of the Economics Department, made that
then
point.
What did you do?
What did we do?
The alternatives and cleaning up those who were licensed to operate. How?
So what did we do?
Did you put
what
down?
did we do? Number one, we made sure that we got a list of all small-scale, legally registered small-scale miners operating in this country.
List.
And the areas that they were working.
1, 2.
So we identified them. 2, we made it a key performance indicator, because there is no district in this country that is mineralized, that is not under the jurisdiction of a district assembly. So we made it one of the key performance indicators of all district assemblies. You recall a district chief executive lost his employment by reason of the fact that we thought he was complicit.
Performance of what? To do what?
To ensure that galamsey was not done.
But the legal miners are using galamsey methods.
Please. What's galamsey method?
The
What is galamsey
Shamfans
method?
and the
What is
Chinese
galamsey
who
method?
imported
What is Shamfan? Shamfan is dredging on water bodies. First of all, you see the total misunderstanding of galamsey. Look, dredging of water bodies is not a permissible activity anywhere in this country unless
the former president. I need to hear from Kofi and Kweku as well. But the former president was saying something to the effect that you're chasing them out and you're not providing them alternative. What did you do? Because as we understand,
what did we do?
There was a comprehensive alternative livelihood, program or policy done, but at the Flagstaff House, it was shelved.
No, it was not shelved.
It was shelved for political purposes.
No, it was not shelved.
It was never implemented.
This is the Minerals Commission's measures under the Ghana Mining Vision, produced by Dr. Tony Orbin, the Chief Executive of the Minerals Commission. And if you permit me, I will read to you what we were doing on providing alternative livelihood programs.
Just do a brief on that, and I'll take a break, return to Kweku and to
first of all,
Kofi, and Kofi will tell you about his quick solution that all of you don't seem to listen. District Assembly, and you are talking about District Assembly. He's on the point all the time. Yes.
What I'm saying is that
the president's major concern is about chasing them away and not giving them alternatives. What
I'm looking for alternative livelihood programs.
How do you answer the question that within your regime, the problem became so pronounced, and it is now that we are seeing results, as in the water bodies that are healing?
What problem became pronounced? You see, people forget to appreciate the fact that the things that we did as a government is what this government is building on. You remember the Pra River? When I was doing Galamsey, and we had done the Pra before and the Pra now. In fact, there was a report on Joy FM, your network, which said that we had photoshopped the picture. Then and now, we did it. We erected billboards to communicate directly with the people. We met the chiefs to tell them to take control. And I always use the Ofinsohene as an example, who had given us his word that for the Ofinso traditional area, no small-scale mining will take place.
Okay, thank you.
Now, but let me find the
you found it
alternative.
Now?
So you say development of small-scale mining. The man says that we didn't even create district offices. Two, that is there's the first one, and but let me read this one. Creation of more district offices closest to the small-scale mining sites.
He said you didn't do even one
of them. He said we didn't even do one. We were even.
But the fact that it's on paper here doesn't mean you did it.
That is what that is the lies.
This was the intent. This was the intent.
intent.
This is not the report.
This is not intent. This is what we're doing.
Okay.
It's not intent.
I see.
Barbara, my deputy Barbara, visited many district offices sites to commission them.
Okay.
Now, district mining committees to be inaugurated, regional task forces created to control illegal small-scale mining, small-scale mining associations formed. Minister says we didn't form anything. Alternative livelihood projects in mining communities. That is oil palm plantation projects.
Okay, thank you.
These are not proposals. These are not proposals.
Some of them, when you look at the wording, it says, when you look at the wording, it says formed. Then when it says to be created, that way we can insist that they were plans. Okay, we take a break here.
They were not plans.
When we return, don't worry.
No,
I say that from the wording, some of them are plans. When I say to create, to inaugurate, but those that say formed, implemented, then you know that that has been done. So we'll take a break. When we return, we'll hear from Kweku Bako and Kofi Bento. You're welcome back. This is Newsfile. It's your most authoritative news analysis platform. And just in a minute before I get to them.
Okay.
So the president's complaint, the former president's complaint is that the task force and the approach that he used didn't work. So did you stop? And if you did, what was the next approach? And for which he wants to advise his government to take?
Well, I left the ministry in June 2014.
Fantastic.
And when I was leaving in June 2014, the task force was still in place. General Michaud was still the head of the task force.
He said they stopped.
That I don't know. I don't know about it. I don't know about it. And okay. I left the ministry in June, but we had, like I said, clearly mapped out strategy.
Okay.
We had identified the stakeholders. We had said that the way to go about Galamsey is to involve all the stakeholders.
Okay.
You have the French communities, you have civil society organization, you have WordCam, you have the small-scale miners association, you have the traditional leaders, you have the district chief executives.
All right.
Everybody.
So, yeah, the little clarity I wanted, I've gotten. Thank you. Kofi, you seem to know that what Mahama is saying is true, that they stopped because it wasn't working. You seem to know. What are the facts about where they got to and stopped?
Who got to?
President Mahama said it wasn't working.
In their time?
Yes. And so that is not the approach. So did they stop? And if they stopped, what else did they do?
Well, yes, they stopped. And I agree with Honorable Amewu. We were watching that thing. There was, let me start this way. Galamsey got to its worst in the history of this country under President John Mahama. There was a lot of talk and no action. We discussed it a number of times over here. Okay. Then when it got to a point where there was no way to excuse themselves from not acting, they set up a task force. And something, I remember that day I was here. Let me finish. You know, you've gone through, let me finish. You've gone through all kinds of, a series of minutes and that kind of thing. A lot of ad hoc, long English. Let me finish.
So continue.
They set up a task force. I said here that the task force will become part of the problem. After a while, they were disbanded because they were said to be corrupt. There was no coherent national strategy that we got to know of under President John Mahama as we have now, where the president has placed his presidency, up against this fight, has put the army in. And by the way, all of us were calling for the army to get into this. During NDC's time, the army was never fully mobilized. They would pick pot shots and little things here and there, and it was never effective. And they ended up becoming...
This is your own view.
You are trying to break my thought.
No, this is your own view.
Oh, please.
It's not backed by anything. I'm giving you...
All right. So please continue. Your
they were ineffective,
yes.
and that is why they stopped. Look, I myself, I got so offended about this American series, Jungle Gold. I took information and videos. It was even, all over the place, to the police headquarters and get some of the people there and said, look, at least arrest these people. They were in town. Nothing happened. I know a number of people who took evidence. Nothing happened. Now we have a more coherent approach. It doesn't mean it is succeeding wildly, but the point has to be made that the NDC's fight against Galamsey was not effective. And I made that point that I'm going to make today. That's when I made the suggestion that I'm going to repeat, which you are calling the solution. I said, Ghana, every space of land in Ghana is in a district. All they needed to do was to make sure that the district chief executive's job was contingent on whether Galamsey was going on in your district or not. And you had all kinds of situations where people were even saying it's the DCs who were renting out equipment.
Right.
Okay. So, honestly, from our perch, much as we will say this government has not perfectly solved the problem, we can clearly say that the efforts in this period are more coherent. They have had more positive effect than the efforts we had under the NDC, which is why President John Mahama's statements are very, very sad. What we need to do is improve what we are doing, but not suggest that this is not the way. I think the Ghana Army can succeed if the Ghana Army wants to succeed. We still think that there are too many powerful people in government.
This is not your proposed approach, but you feel it's working?
It is better than what we had. My approach says that, look, whatever you do, make the district chief executive and the regional minister responsible.
But the district chief executive will have to respect the chiefs there, and the chiefs are often the ones who are, in the lead for giving out lands and all.
But the law is on the side of the district chief executive. The chief is under law. And the district chief executive is the custodian of the law, the representative of the state.
That district chief executive may never get that job as a district chief executive, but for the chief's intervention.
But that is why the state must back the district chief executive. This approach, what it will mean is that the DCE will now insist on being supported. And the state must put the army behind him, put its powers behind him, so he will have some weight against the chiefs. Not to slap them down unnecessarily, but to make sure that they do these things properly. Artisanal mining, what we call Galamsey. Look, in Aspen is a place where billionaires go and play in winter. It's a very pristine place. I've been there and we saw Galamsey going on. Silver mining in Aspen has been going on since 1860, and they don't have any pollution. So it is possible. And I'm saying that if we will make the DCE's job contingent on Galamsey happening or not happening, you lose your job. I think we'll start getting to a solution and put all the systems and measures we are putting now behind them.
Okay. Kweku?
Yeah. See, I've been wondering what President Mahama was seeking to communicate. Well, and the target audience. Who was he talking to? What was he talking about? You see, because if you listen carefully, he was talking of illegal small-scale miners.
Right.
In a sense, I believe that means galamseyers. But at the same time, I heard him say that if you place a blanket ban, it's ineffective. It's not the way to go. Illegal miners, galamsey, I don't get it. Small scale, the licensed ones, there's a certain suspension.
Okay.
Okay? And it's a distinct group, even though there's a reason why the suspension came in. Now the galamseyers, they are illegal miners, out and out. And it's them who the Operation Vanguard is chasing out. So it was internally incoherent, the message. I didn't get it. Okay? There was a group there with a banner.
Yes.
They are entitled to that. They said they are small-scale miners. I would safely want to presume that they are the licensed sector. They claim that the President Akufo-Addo has disappointed them. Sure, out there, people are complaining about the length of the ban or the suspension, if that's a better way of putting it, because you've given them license to operate and you've suspended operations for good reasons, in my candid opinion, initially. So people now are worried about the length and what to do about it. Even within the MPP, there's a constituency growing and asking government to do something about that. But if the President Mahama communicates that message, you see, it's confusing. I have to be honest with you. That stop chasing and shooting them. The impression was also created as if there is a shoot-to-kill policy in place, which is not true. There is no such official policy in place.
But there have been deaths as a result of the work.
Same way under Mahama administration. There was no policy to shoot-to-kill in place. But in the practical operations, some people were hurt. Some were killed. Properties were burnt. Equipment were seized and burnt. It's documented.
Equipment were never seized and burnt.
I will give you proof.
No.
No problems.
Peter Amewu refers
to... you can bring the proof.
Wuntumi's equipment.
It was not true. I was there when Wuntumi came to my office. It's not true.
But this is a matter before the court.
So you can leave it that way. Kweku is trying to make a distinction between licensed small scale and then galamsey.
Kweku is producing some documents.
Today the problem is it's important. Today the problem is that those who have so-called licenses are part of the problem. Yeah. It's about mining practices.
Yes.
Thank you.
Yeah, someone was referring to that.
Yeah, so we should be clear about that. The mining practices of both licensed and unlicensed persons.
Yes. He refers to that as a galamsey method
all in the same
being
bucket.
Adopted by those who have the licenses.
But that's exactly why I said there was a good reason for the suspension in the initial phases.
Okay.
And let me give you this is a GNA report of 2013, May 29, 2013. It's not to do with what I will come to that later. Police arrest 51 foreigners for illegal mining in Western region. And this is a GNA report. The point we are just making. This is Kofi Boakye talking. He was in charge of the Western regional thing. So DCOP Boakye said the illegal small-scale miners could be grouped into 4 categories, namely, those who did not have mining license to operate, people who have mining licenses but are using unapproved tools and equipment to undertake deep mining, as well as those who had licenses to operate but failed to reclaim the degraded land after extensive environmental degradation, and people who subleased their mining licenses to foreigners and other locals to do small-scale mining.
Interesting classification.
Yes.
So it was such a complex situation.
Yeah. Yes.
And if the government wanted to deal with this matter, the first and foremost thing to do was to ensure that whether licensed or unlicensed in the small-scale area, stop.
We all call for that.
Yes. Thank you. And then find ways and means of dealing with the matter. But first and foremost, the illegals, the law doesn't even back them.
Completely clear them off.
So you clear them off. So that's why I'm asking. What was President Mahama suggesting? We tried it, it didn't work, and we stopped. And indeed, he told Dochin in 2015, that's why he had left, that they had actually abandoned that operation. The Inter-Ministerial Task Force remained in place, but the operation, the policing military operation, was abandoned. And President Mahama himself told Dochin when he visited him and said that what they have they've rather put in place an alternative livelihood program that was targeted at employing 400,000 youth. I have all the documents here. And actually said it will start with 100,000 youth. Okay? I have not seen any evidence of that. But the question I'm asking is that if you say the government should not chase the young people out there and stop shooting them, that was targeted at the legal miners, not the small-scale miners. I don't know if you get my point.
Yes.
It's a very clear point.
Government doesn't shoot legal miners. It shoots criminals.
So
government has no right to shoot anybody.
Yes, without a court, without
there was exchange of fire. I'm not saying anybody should kill anybody. No right to shoot anybody. I get it.
I think we know
when they are shooting back. Don't make that point. Don't make that point.
You are aware there was
government has no right to shoot anybody.
Doesn't go
when somebody shoots back, what do you do? Government has no right to shoot at
even
anybody.
when you are shot, government enforces the law.
Even when you are shot, I'm surprised.
No,
I'm surprised.
Sorry that he knows.
Even when you are shot,
I'm surprised. People were armed in the place and they were shooting back.
Chinese
armed.
They were armed, repeater rifles.
Right. But
even when you are shot at.
There's some credit in the unprecedented numbers that you managed to get out of the country, particularly the Chinese. Almost, is it 9,000?
Finally, we got about 5,000 off.
5,000 of them out of the place.
And 100 of them came back.
And yet the problem was this
because of the local collaborators.
So you agree all of them came back?
We identified the local collaborators. Indeed, when you are talking about illegal small-scale mining, you must be very careful not to send it into partisan politics. We know local collaborators who brought in the Chinese in the first place.
Right.
Now, Bentil said something which is totally wrong. He says that when the matter came to a head, the Mahama did not know what to do. He set up a task force. Kofi, you are totally wrong.
What did you do?
Mahama became president on the 7th day of January 2000, elected president on the 7th day of January 2013. Mahama set up the task force on 4th May 2013. So, Kofi, you are saying that within that period of January to May, matters came to a head.
But he was already president before he became president. He was president in 2012. He was president in 2012.
I have just read
was this not going on under President Mills?
Kofi, we are all here.
He was the vice president not virtually the one acting as president before 2013?
Okay, thank you. It's okay, don't go back to your manifesto.
You and I, we sat here.
Right, don't go back to your manifesto.
The impression.
Let's look at it this way, and YB, see, the livelihood projects. I'm talking about the solutions. Let's focus on them. The livelihood project. Do you really sincerely believe that people who are used to galamsey and used to the money that they get out of galamsey will subscribe to these livelihood projects?
Excellent. That is the challenge going forward.
Planting of palm trees and grass cutter rearing.
How do we provide value added for the energies of those who are in there already and prevent new entrants? Live alternates means that you prevent new entrants and then you also provide for the energy that will be displaced. How do we do that effectively so that they are best employed? I think there should be some internal logic to this industry, that you can clean up and get them to work effectively and still absorb all of them, provided you are tracking the monies and getting the monies to work to restore the environment. You can get to a point where if you do it effectively, it may be as profitable as planting palm trees. You understand? Because you will earn the money all right, but because it's traceable, the taxes, the events associated with earning the money, reclamation of land and all that you will be required to pay for, would mean that your real profits may be marginally lower than planting palm trees.
It's been over a year since we pushed them out of their business.
Yes.
Illegal business.
Yes.
What do you think they will be doing in between the time that this committee is still not finished with what ought to be done?
Something. I don't pretend to have the answers to what they are doing. Obviously, as we speak, there are fly-by-night operations. Once the Vanguard team leaves, a few bold ones go back, try to do
there
what
are even people who are mining under the protection of the Vanguard people.
Once we
that's a serious allegation.
Once we accept,
that's a serious allegation.
It's very serious.
People are mining under the protection of the Vanguard team.
That is very serious and has to be substantiated.
Yes.
That's
it's serious and has to be substantiated because you are undermining the credibility of the Ghana Army, the police service, and all that. It has to be substantiated. And if it is individuals within there who are perpetuating those acts, those individuals have to be exposed. But what I'm saying,
on the 24th day of May 2017, this is what Amewu said. Soldiers protecting galamsey sites. It's here. That's evidence.
Okay, so Yunus Hosseini is showing us the daily graphic of Wednesday, May 24.
And that is
what evidence.
And
that is what provide the evidence.
Yes, you have evidence. And that is what I like about Amewu.
Okay.
He doesn't mince words.
Right.
Yeah, that's why when
Amewu is on top of his game.
No, I didn't finish.
Yes.
Amewu is on top of his game.
Right.
Now the challenge that Amewu must lead is to deliver a credible process to sanitize the industry, because we are not going to kill it, as well as providing alternatives that are attractive beyond the industry.
Right. The process must include exposing the big men in the system who are behind this, and then please, you cannot give an alternative livelihood to a drug pusher who makes millions. This is criminal activity. We don't have a responsibility to give livelihoods, to people who are making so much money. Look, we underestimated our gold output by over 2 billion last year. The news out there said that we exported about 7 billion or so, and our records show so. So please, let's be careful about that one.
It's an industry.
I was just in Kweku on why we have not had analysis expose on this thing.
Right.
Those blocking it should please allow it to come.
I said Amewu is a very, very
there must be an expose.
You know that analysis.
If you want the expose, let's have the expose. But we must
let's not think about underestimated
net
value
return
of gold out there. It's a law in other issues. It's just because of the illegal mining operations. Their gold does not come through the PMMC. Exactly. But when they go out, because of tax purposes, the receiving countries will have to document. Yes. That is why we have entered into treaties with the European Union.
Right.
And there are so we cannot assume that
the cost-benefit analysis must be done internally.
Good solutions.
And work must be done on revenue tracking.
And as always, solution-oriented. But this issue has now come up. We are discussing again, throwing a lot more light on it. The people who are involved will continue to feel that, look, we are not giving up on this. And the president has already put his own office on the line on this project. Do you agree that the NPP's approach, which the former president's office says is a setting intolerance, will not help? They organized a press conference and called him, and even Peter Amewu called him a con man.
Somebody called him a lawless person because he expressed his views. Look, how can you be lawless when the rhetoric around this fight is troubling. The rhetoric is troubling. I mean, when Inisa was reading, I was like, where is the action around it? Okay, so honestly, we've all said that we suspect too many powerful people, too many politicians, including people who have to fight this thing, are part of it. So we need to see more action and stop the political rhetorics and the infighting around the fight. There's a fight around the fight, and that is what. Yes, Akufo should tell us something about that one. We need to become one on this fight.
We'll take our break. Kweku will finish and then we'll take our break. Yes.
So bottom line.
Yes.
I think
because we actually truncated him.
Yes, you did. President Mahama did not communicate well. Indeed, what he said was, as I said, internally incoherent. Look, the police action or the military action and alternative livelihood programs are not mutually exclusive. Emphasis, for starters, definitely will have to be on the military action, so as to make sure you curtail the degradation that is ongoing. So he got it all wrong. And you see, because he said it on a political platform, it creates part of the problem. It deepens the problem that we've faced all these years. And it cuts across the political divide. I have to be very honest with you. Now, before I come to my final point, there is this report here. Since now, graphic has been fully displayed for us to see. This is President's Interministerial Task Force Against Galamsey has deviated. 8th June 2013. And the president, some gentleman who says the president of the network of small-scale miners, Eric Kofi Rivers, is the one this is being attributed to. And he said one of the major tasks given to the committee was to seize machines and equipment of illegal miners. Quote, they go to a mine and burn everything down, he stated. Fire in Accra, fire in the bush. He said, explaining that they set fires on mining equipment of miners, causing environmental degradation. This is 2013. Okay. Same 2013, 10th June. This is Chinese miner shot dead in Galamsey shooting. That's not where the emphasis is. My emphasis is here. Peace FM's Gabi Edu Jemfi reported on Friday that all 12 sites visited by the task force were set ablaze, including 20 locally manufactured machines used by the miners to drill water bodies. Okay. So those things did happen. Yeah.
Okay, so finally, there you have
let me finish.
Okay. Yes, finally. Yes.
See,
let's finish. I don't want diversionary tactics.
Yes, go ahead.
No, he's giving us evidence.
No. You are talking about to me. Is that what you're saying?
Understand
that won't to me.
What is that?
Is that what you're saying? But you also said there was one burning.
What equipment was burnt? Oh. Please go ahead.
I said, look, they bent. Look, I read it.
Okay. Stop. Read your last one.
And the last one is just to tell you when they gave up. This is Minister gives up fight against illegal mining. Once new approach, Ayariga. And this is attributed to Joy. It's your report, My Joy Online. This is September 19th, 2016. Okay. His view was that they had tried all, it didn't work, and that the Minerals Commission should come. So that they called the Galamseyers and sit with them and coach them.
Even Minusa, when he was there, he felt he was being undermined by
various He said the Chinese ambassador was undermining him. I have all the reports. Yes. So this is it. But bottom line on the political. Look, and it didn't begin today. I've seen on social media playbacks of candidate Akufo-Addo's interaction with the Galamseyers or small-scale miners or both, and the things he said, and how it's been played back to fit into this whole discussion, especially after President Mahama's thing. There is this document, and I think it's a very fine piece of research material. It's done by one Dr. Abdul Gafuri Abdullahi. He's a senior lecturer at the University of Ghana Business School. And it's a policy brief, the Galamsey menace in Ghana. A political problem requiring political solutions is a question. Now, let me please. He says, why has the illegal mining continued to flourish despite the state's efforts to regularize the sector through various policies and programs? Why have most ASM, that is artisanal small-scale mining, operators chosen to remain illegal despite some opportunities for the state's support associated with the regularization of the activities? Why has the fight against illegal mining been thus far largely unsuccessful? That he provides some answers. Until quite recently, most analysts and policymakers have interpreted Ghana's Galamsey menace as a technical and economic (brackets not a political problem) driven by the cumbersome and time-consuming processes involved in acquiring the necessary licenses for engaging in ASM on legal basis. This is the key point. And electoral competition has become more intense, the Galamsey discourse has taken an increasingly partisan character, in which opposition parties often bolster the position of illegal miners in order to make those in power unpopular and gain partisan political advantage. The two dominant parties are especially guilty of this problem. In late 2006, the NPP government initiated Operation Flush Out, a military sweep against illegal miners that resulted in the confiscation and destruction of the equipment of Galamsey operators. This operation formed an important part of the campaign message of the opposition NDC, which campaigned on the platform that was sympathetic to small-scale mining youth engaged in galamsey. The late John Atta Mills, the party's presidential candidate at the time, continually blamed the leadership of the then ruling MPP for conflicts between small-scale miners and the large-scale companies, and reportedly asked why the MPP was treating galamsey operators as if they were not Ghanaians.
Repetition.
Once Atta Mills won the 2008 elections, his government came under intense pressure from youth groups and small-scale miners to make good on his promises to provide greater support for the sector. The MPP, now in opposition, capitalized on the small-scale mining community's perceived alienation in the next elections by pointing fingers at Mills's broken promises. Importantly, just as the NDC did in 2008, the MPP's campaign strategy for 2016 was couched in a language that pointed to its support for galamsey, even if unintentionally. During a campaign trip to Obuasi, that's the one I referred to, the party's presidential candidate, now President Akufo-Addo, reportedly drew his supporters' attention to how the Mahama-led government, NDC government, directed soldiers to come and drive out all persons involved in galamsey. It is these types of election favor pronouncements that provide grounds for galamsey operators to express their feelings of betrayal by the current NPP government in its fight against illegal mining. Last one, please. Just to give you, this is 17 July 2008. Mills promises to streamline galamsey operations. And this is why he said he described as unfortunate, and this is the Ghanaian Chronicle. He described as unfortunate the situation where soldiers and policemen are used by mining companies to harass illegal miners, popularly referred to as galamsey. Adding, when we were in power, police and soldiers were not chasing galamseyers. That is why I'm appealing to you to vote us back to power. According to him, the situation has increasingly become so because the MPP had abandoned the measures the NDC put in place and questioned, our brothers in galamsey business, not Ghanaians. He therefore appealed to the constituents, especially galamsey people, to vote massively for the NDC come December 7, so that we can bring back those good measures. My brother, let me be blunt.
30 seconds. We take a break and come back.
Enough documentation and records were made available to the Mahama administration, as well as this administration, on involvement of key political operatives, regional chairmen, constituency executives. Some of these things are on record and are available at the police, Ghana police.
Right.
And nothing is being done because of this political element.
Right.
If we don't take that political element out, forget it.
Right. And what Kuku just spoke about, I was telling him about it when we went on the break. I was telling Inusa about it, and he was asking me for the details. Fact is, sometimes that's just our problem with the politicians. We'll be right back. You're welcome back. This is Newsfile, and we've got just some 5 minutes to go. And well, it's obvious that we will need us to do a lot more work that will expose the political and traditional chieftaincy faces in these matters, so that we will all see the hypocrisy that greets the galamsey fight. And as you know, in June, ANAS is releasing another, consignment in June. If you are lucky, we'll give you a peek into that maybe sometime next week. Yes, and he was talking about the galamsey thing that he's been doing for a long time. Has it ended?
To be suppressed.
What you are talking about in June took him about 2 years to complete.
Right.
He's a very diligent person. Galamsey is work in progress.
Right.
Let nobody get deceived that that project has been aborted.
Okay.
It has not been.
Okay.
It's almost 85% complete.
Right. I can't wait to have that on. Let me read some comments and come back to you. Spike in Ohio says that President Mahama's comments should be ignored. I urge the NPP should stay focused and root out galamsey because water bodies and the environment need to be protected. Eja Adam in Enyinem says that when a former president under whose watch the menace of reckless illegal mining heightened, with impunity, mounts his political comeback platform to criticize his successor for taking steps to fight that same menace, it makes you wonder. I think it is time former President Mahama takes a breather from politics and take a deep nap. Whether good or bad, he has done his quota. Benjamin Osei Jamra in Edinburgh says that as we are busy talking about NAPCO and NDC saying it is not a sustainable job offer, there are teeming number of jobless graduates who are already applying for the modules. Oliver Bamba in Salega says NAPCO is a well thought out and deliberate social initiative by the government to arrest the soaring graduate unemployment situation in the country. Kwesi Akufo in Subing in Kumasi says that the suggestion that the monies earmarked for use in the NAPCO be rather used to fund the one district, one factory to create permanent employment is one without merit. How many graduates can the one district, one factory employ? Eliasu, a lot more. Okay, so some 30 seconds. Final comments.
No one is saying that the NAPCO is going to provide employment. It's going to provide training.
Yes.
So what I'm saying is that yes, galamsey ought to be fought. I mean, no one can. I mean, you have to look at our water bodies. You have to look at the chemicals that are being used.
The current fight, is it working?
The current fight is not sustainable. I mean, no one is even telling us about the amount of money that's being spent on the military.
Okay.
No one.
All right, thank you.
So what I'm saying is that we have a lot of work to do.
Thank you.
And the former president did a lot of work.
Thank
you.
They should
consult him.
Thank you. YB.
The president is committed to this fight and it will work.
He's put his presidency on the line. Yes, Kofi.
It is not possible to convince me that we are not a people capable of fighting and rooting out galamsey. I think the reason why we are losing is because the people who have to fight it are complicit in it. $500 million and all that kind of money is the reason why we are not doing well. Our politicians must sit up.
Thank you very much. I'm Samson Ladia. My outfit, as always, is by Latida. And my guests have been Abdul Malik Wekubako, editor-in-chief of the New Crusading Guide newspaper. Kofi Bentil, he's a lawyer, and Vice President Imani Africa. Inus Husseini is the Honorable MP for Tamale Central. Yabwa Benga Samoa is the Honorable MP for Adentan constituency. We spoke earlier to Anyas, Dr. Anyas Ibrahim of the NAPCO, and also Professor William Ba Boateng of the University of Ghana. Thank you all very much. Have a good afternoon. The news is up next.
Okay.